if you watched early MMA, well, it was kind of like whatever you wanted. So like some guys wore gis, some guy wore wrestling shoes. There's this one guy, he was a boxer, and he wore one boxing glove and one bare hand, you know? So like there's some really like hilarious things back in the day. One of the things that was hilarious about Pride was that they not only allowed PEDs, they encouraged PEDs.
What? Do you think the sport would be better off if people just were allowed to take it? You also boxed Jake Paul.
Only once.
Yeah, one time. Why'd you do it? All right, guys, bang, bang. I've got Ben here with me. You got a fascinating life, and I thought a great way to kind of understand what the hell you've been through is to start off first talking about just excellence. Like, I feel like a lot of the things that you've done in your life, you've tried to be the best at it. Talk, like, what does excellence mean to you, and why has that been such a focus for you?
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the way I think about things. Like, if I'm going to try to do something, I might as well try to be the best at it. I don't really see any reason not to. You know, I've never heard anyone make a good argument like, why should you just do something and, like, do it average? But it's also perhaps because I'm very obsessive about things, you know? So, I mean, obviously, like, later in my life, I learned disc golf, you know? And I started playing and I just got obsessed with it, right? And I'm like, okay, I want to go play in a tournament now, see if I'm actually good or not. And then I played in this tournament and I sucked. And I'm like, oh, wait, but I can throw good, but I can't putt worth a damn. So then it's like, okay, I need to go buy a basket and put it in my front yard, you know? And then I obsessively putt. And I got to the point where I went on the pro level, I wasn't good, but I took second at the amateur nationals, you know? So I was like really high level at that. And so, yeah, I just don't see a reason not to do things really well. And maybe it's because I'm super obsessive and other people are like kind of all over the place, but that's just my personality.
Why do you like disc golf? Like, I've seen the videos. Yeah, I know you've got funky farms.
Have you played yet?
Huh? I played once or twice when I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
And, like, it was kind of a thing that people did one time. And, like, yeah, I'd done it, and then they never did it again.
What? Yeah. Disc golf actually during 2020, Corona, disc golf just freaking took off in popularity. Because people wanted to be outside and then they could stay far away from other people, you know? So disc golf like kind of blew up. And, you know, there's guys getting $1 million contracts now for some sponsors on a yearly basis.
Really?
Yeah. So Paul Macbeth got, you should have him down here. He's, or your brother, right? Your brother talks more sports.
Yeah.
He's out of Jacksonville now, but he got $1 million a year contract from Discraft, who sponsors me also. For me, I think, you know what I think it really is the immediate feedback. So you take this disc, right? And once you get good, each one of them does something a little different. And then you get to envision the way it's going to fly. And then you rip it, and you get to try to watch it fly the way you want it to fly. And when you get something good, like what you envision in your head, it's like, oh, that was awesome.
Is it literally golf, but with discs? Like, for the most part, it's there's par, there's putting, like the whole thing?
Yes,
but you're just throwing rather than hitting.
So you want to hear I have a really simple argument for disc golf over golf. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, golf takes too damn long. I don't know if you ever played 18 holes of golf. Have you?
My brothers and I usually go, not every Friday, but many Fridays.
Right. It takes like 5 hours.
Yeah, it's an all-afternoon activity.
Okay, like 5 hours. So disc golf, you know, if you got a group, probably an hour, hour and a half, depending on how difficult the course is. Not going to take super long. Number two, generally, in most places, it's free now, right? There's some pay to play, but it's not that much. It's like in parks and stuff. Number three, if you want a disc golf set, generally, I would recommend you start with like, say 3 or 4 discs. That's going to run you, we'll say $60 to $80, somewhere in there. Maybe you can get like one golf club for that, right?
Yes.
And then the last one, someone busy like you or like me, you don't need tee times, right? So you just show up and play. Like if you thought, hey, you thought this podcast was going to last an hour and it lasts 2 hours, well, if you miss your tee time, you're screwed, right? But disc golf, you just go out and play. So that's my arguments.
That's actually a pretty strong argument. I think the hard part is just people got to get good at throwing the disc.
Yeah. Well, I think if you have someone that's relatively knowledgeable, to get like a base level would be probably easier than golf. I would think, just because to get really good, now that's going to take a lot, right? But to just understand how to throw it straight, a couple hundred feet, like you're an athlete, right? I could take you out to the park and in 20, 30 minutes, I would have you throwing it a couple hundred feet straight, relatively straight, you know? Yeah.
You could not do that with a golf club.
Yes, golf. Yeah, I golfed for a few years when I was like really young, and then my parents said, "Hey, you got to pay for it." I'm like, "All right, I'm out."
Yeah.
You know, like you're like 7th grade or 8th grade, and then they're like, "Oh, you got to pay now." I'm like, "All right, I'm done with that."
When I want to talk about combat sports in general, one of the things that's fascinating to me is like you had this illustrious wrestling career, but you can't punch people, right? It's just straight wrestling. Is that frustrating? I've always wondered. I'm like watching wrestling, and I'm like, if you're actually mad or competitive or whatever, you're in a fight. but kind of not in the fight. Like, how did you think about that? Or is it just second nature because you've just been trained so much that you can't, like, that's not a thing you do?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit second nature, but wrestling is actually funny. I just read this, the last book I read was called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And it's funny because wrestling is mentioned so many times, probably 6 to 8 times. And so wrestling is like, it's such within the human condition to like grab someone and try to manipulate them or take them down. No, I mean, when I started wrestling, there was no MMA, right? I mean, it literally didn't exist. I started wrestling probably in 1991. I've been 7 years old. And the very first MMA competition was 1993. Wow. You know? And then I remember watching some early ones, like my dad got the VHS tape. And then...
what'd you think?
I was fascinated. I really was. So I remember, like, part of me, even at, I think I would have been 9 or 10 years old, I thought, like, oh my God, some of these dudes are so stupid. I have to actually talk about in the book. I have this vivid memory. My dad brought home this tape and was like, hey, let's watch this fighting thing, you know? Because in the beginning, it wasn't like, hey, this is MMA. It was like, hey, let's see who wins. I mean, this is the beginning of MMA. Who, let's see who wins. Does a wrestler win? Does a jiu-jitsu guy win? Does a boxer win? Like, what wins when all these things happen, you know?
Genius idea.
It really is, because really everyone wanted to know. And then, you know, what we found out was most the like taekwondo and karate were kind of a little bit bull crap. I mean, there's some things we can take, but not that much. So I remember watching it, and I wish I remembered exactly which UFC it was. I don't know, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something really early, you know? And there was this one guy, and he was talking about how tough he was because he punches this bag of cement. Essentially, it was like a block of cement with some duct tape around it. The guy was just, you know, like sticking it with it. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is wrong with this guy? This is so ridiculous. Like, how's he gonna get good at fighting by punching a block of concrete? You know, that's like my simple 10-year-old thought. But I was intrigued by it, and then it kind of went away for a while. I mean, you're right, you don't remember the history of MMA, but everyone started banning it. I think by the end, it was only legal in like 4 states or something, because the first thing they were promoting, the first tagline was 8 men enter, 1 man leaves. Like, you know, like this notion that someone's gonna die, right?
Yeah.
And
great marketing for the consumer, probably not so great for the regulators and the licensing.
Yeah, so I think actually only one person's ever died in 30 years of regulated mixed martial arts.
And this is all bare knuckle when it first started?
It was, yeah. I mean, and if you watched early MMA, well, it was kind of like whatever you wanted. So, like, some guys wore gis, some guy wore wrestling shoes. There was this one guy, really famous guy named Art Jimerson. He was a boxer, and he wore 1 boxing glove and 1 bare hand, you know? So, like, you know, there were some really, like, hilarious things back in the day. There was a sumo wrestler who wore his his outfit. So you kind of saw a little bit of everything back then. And then, so it went away kind of because it got banned everywhere, you know, when there was no one would distribute it. And then, you know, obviously Zuffa buys it in 2002. So if you were watching MMA, so that was kind of my high school time period, it was like you were really like having to dig deep to go find some VHS tape somewhere. And I remember we always enjoyed it because I think the wrestlers came in maybe like late 90s-ish. So there's a guy named like Mark Coleman, Kevin Randleman, guys who had high success in wrestling, started doing really well in mixed martial arts. So that was, you know, like I said, in the beginning, it was like, which discipline is better? You know, every discipline, and mixed martial arts, every martial arts wants to have pride in their discipline. And so when wrestlers started doing really well, it was like, oh, that's really awesome. But it was still like this thing that's like, over here.
When the wrestlers started to do well, how much of it was like the wrestlers were just taking people down and they didn't know how to like defend against getting taken down, versus the wrestlers had gotten good at punching and kicking and like other kind of components of the combat?
I would say those guys that I mentioned, you know, one of the things with wrestlers, they work really hard, especially I would say compared to the other martial arts, even currently, they still work really hard, right? And so they had a ton of success, and they picked up other things relatively quickly. So I'd say those guys kind of were a little bit good everywhere, but yes, obviously, Mark Coleman, and he's still around. I just saw him coaching at the most recent UFC. He made the term ground and pound, right? So I don't remember, you know, the exact. I'm gonna take him to the ground. I'm gonna pound him. Right, so you just take him down and they just keep punching him. And I believe for a while headbutts were still legal. So one of the things they would grab the head and, you know, they would well, because you can cut people really easily, like right here with this part of your head.
And it used to be bare knuckle. headbutting, but also couldn't you kick people when they were on the ground? Like they were like standing up or something?
And that was in Pride. I don't remember when they banned that in America. But then, the other one was nut shots were legal for a while. And there's this one famous one where this dude elbows him in the nuts and it kind of ends the fight. So it was like really, really limited rule set. And then when Zuffa took over, I think they were like, how do we work with the regulators? That's kind of like the crypto industry, huh?
Yeah.
Like, how do we work with the regulators? And some people are like, no way. But then most people realize it's probably going to be a little bit better when we do.
Yeah. And so what they basically did was they just created clear rules that put gloves on people. They cleaned it up to a degree, but still kept the like gladiator / like 2 people go in, 1 comes out type mentality. It just was in this new rule framework, which cleaned it up and allowed for the distribution.
Yeah, exactly. And, they obviously did a lot of other things really well. And then, so they bought it in 2002 and did all of those things. And most of the things, there's a few that are really stupid. Most of the things were really smart. Like kicking to the head of a grounded opponent, it's really dumb because the only time you would ever actually do that is generally when they're knocked out, right? You hit them, they fall down, and then you kick them also. It's like, well, why is that necessary, But say like a 12-6 elbow is something that's banned. It's like you do like this, right? So your elbow goes from 12 to 6 straight down. And it was because some dumbass karate guy said you could kill someone doing an elbow like that. You know what I'm saying?
Could you?
Well, okay, listen, why can you go like this, right? Well, I'm going at an angle, or like this, where I'm going like this, but I can't do this. It's preposterous, right? Why that one thing is banned. Or, another one that's...
So wait, the referee, I didn't know this. The referee's sitting there and trying to determine, did you go 12-6 or did you go like 1-7?
Yeah. So you cannot go straight. You can't go straight down like this with an elbow.
Yeah.
But
how do they see that?
It's dumb. Well, I mean, John Jones, I think he's only ever lost one fight, and it was because of DQ, and it was because of that. He 12-6 elbowed Matt Hamill, I believe. But it's a really stupid rule. But then there's another one like kneeing to the head of a grounded opponent. So in one championship where I fought in Asia, you can do that. And like in my take, it's a really good fighting technique because what you want for mixed martial, in my opinion, you want fighting to emulate real life with some of the bullshit taking like an eye gouge or a hit in the nuts, like
throwing sand.
Yeah. So like if you're holding someone in for a headlock in wrestling, so I have your head in your arm and holding you down, I can't strike you because I'm using my hands to hold you, right? But if I have my knees, now I can actually knee you and I can cause damage, and you're in a compromised position, which you are in a compromised position. Right? And so, there's certain things that are probably still illegal that you could probably make legal and make it a little more realistic of a fight. But, they did a really good job. And then, obviously, then The Ultimate Fighter was like 2005.
And that the sport explodes.
That's when it explodes, yeah. So they had the reality show component of it that people were into. And then, they had the Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonner, which was in the season finale that everyone kind of... Even if you don't know mixed martial arts, you kind of remember that because there's just these 2 dudes just freaking throwing down. And, So then after that, boom, it took off. And then, honestly, during Corona, when Dana had the balls to keep everything going, he's one of the first pro sports to start up again, actually right here in Florida, in Jacksonville. They kind of hit another, like, boom, and kind of went up again.
Yeah. The thing that's fascinating to me is you said wrestlers work hard, sometimes even harder than other disciplines. And the UFC, when people see this, they're like, these guys are in shape, they're obviously working hard, and they're going in there and they are just absolutely destroying each other, right, in many of these fights. But I think back to like high school. You always knew who the wrestler was because there was 2 things that they would do. Actually 3 things. 1, they all smelled horribly.
Oh, boo.
Right? 2 is I remember there was a couple of guys that would walk around with like these cups and they were always spitting in the cups. And I'm like, what are you spitting in the cup for? And like, we're trying to cut weight. I was like, why don't you just like go like work out or whatever? Yeah. But like that, we can talk about why they were doing that. But that, and then the third thing was they all hung out together and just no one messed with them. Right? Like, like nobody really messed with the football team. No one would mess with like most of the sports, but like for whatever reason, the wrestlers, like you never just knew. You're like, they kind of sort of know how to fight and like, let's just like leave them over there and like not screw with them. But like talk about spitting in the cup. Like in high school, it was such a ridiculous thing, right? People would be like, why are they doing that? And then when you start to learn about it, you're like, oh, wait a second. Like they don't want to do this. They have to.
No, they shouldn't be spitting in the cup.
Okay, all right, explain.
Well, that would be, okay, so... Oh, where do I start? Well, yeah, first, let me step back first. So when you don't want to mess with the wrestlers, because it is, like you said, you actually said it earlier, it is a little bit like a fight. Yeah. It's a physical confrontation. You can't, there's a few things you can't do, but it's kind of a fight.
In school, you aren't going to eye gouge someone or like, like try to kill them.
Yeah.
So like actually most school fights, maybe there's a couple punches thrown, but they end up in wrestling.
Yes.
So like, I think that's one of the main reasons.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, Max and I, so we own 5 wrestling academies in Wisconsin, and we really push back. And I think almost all of America is, I don't say we're there yet, but we're close with the weight cutting is not beneficial.
Okay, explain.
So I have theories on historically why people think cutting weight is good for you or good for your success. But, over the course of a high school wrestling season, an athlete will have to make weight somewhere around 20 times, right, between dual meets and tournaments and all this stuff. And so if you're really focused on losing weight and spitting in a cup and doing all these other things, you're not going to be focused on getting better at wrestling. You're not going to enjoy it nearly as much because even if you're tough, cutting weight sucks. Even when you're an adult, cutting weight sucks.
These guys look miserable when they were doing it.
I mean, cutting weight's miserable, just generally speaking.
And explain for a second, like, what goes into cutting weight? Like, when someone's serious about it, what are all the things?
So I was good. Generally, high school, I would advise kids cut almost no weight, right? So if you weigh 170 pounds and the weight class is, let's just do it. If you're 173 and the weight class is 170, the next one's up 183. Like, for someone that big to lose 3 pounds, it's like really minimal. Like, maybe eat a little less that day and maybe you get a workout in, and boom, you're 170, But if you were to say, well, I want to wrestle 160, well, that's kind of a long ways away. It's 13 pounds. Now, for like a UFC fighter, now they're going to only make weight. So I said, in a high school season, you probably make weight 20 times. UFC guys going to make weight 3 to 4 times per year, right?
Much easier.
Additionally, it's going to be a day before weigh-in, right? So high school wrestling, college wrestling, it's a 1 hour weigh-in. You weigh in, and then an hour later, the competition begins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you're cutting a lot of water weight, you're not going to compete well.
Yeah.
Right? You're just not going to.
You're dehydrated.
You're dehydrated. You feel like crap. Yes. And yeah. So like, it's just a really bad idea.
Why do they do that?
I have my historical reason if you want to think.
Yeah, of course.
But no, for fighting, it makes sense because yes, in a 24-hour-ish period, you can feel significantly better than what you did, right?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys, and actually as an adult male specifically, I mean, females lose weight, but not nearly as rapidly. Sweating, I mean, I'm not on probably the high end of the spectrum, but I can sweat 5 to 7 pounds in an hour, right? Put some warm clothes on, get it going, and weight comes off like that, For real.
Get it going. What would you do?
So the key is to not work too hard. If I'm cutting weight, I don't work too hard, right? So I'll work hard for about 15 to 20 minutes. I'll start sweating hard, and then I don't got to work that hard. I don't want to overwork myself.
So, like, what do you do in that 15 to 20 minutes? I'm fascinated by the cutting weight thing.
It might be running, right? Okay. It might be hitting mitts. I know, like, fighting.
So it's like normal things. It's not some crazy thing where you got like a trash bag on and you're like.
You want to get your heart rate up.
Okay.
That's one where high school kids like. So high school, the spitting the cup, it's like just they're being wimps. They don't want to go work out. It's ridiculous.
Interesting.
So like if I ever saw my kids doing that, I'd be stop. Yeah. This is ridiculous. Just go freaking work out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Stop spitting the cup.
Because all they're trying to do is just get.
And you're not going to lose barely any weight. You're going to lose like. Over the course of, if you spit for a couple hours, you might lose like half a pound or 3/4. Like, you're not gonna lose anything. It's just ridiculous, So just like stop, dude. You look preposterous. I mean, honestly, if you want me to go like deep down into the human psyche, those kids probably want attention from other kids about the plight of what they're doing. Right?
In hindsight, that is what it appeared to be.
For sure, it is.
It is like I'm a wrestler. This is part of the wrestling culture.
I want a little bit of attention. I want people to know how tough this is. That's human beings. Like they want attention for specific things. Unfortunately, so. So my historical thought process on why people cut weight, I don't think I've ever said this on air. I've talked to other people about this, is, we know correlation and causation aren't the same thing. Okay. Well, way back when, we go far enough back in wrestling, the toughest people won the matches because there wasn't a lot of moves. It was kind of just like who is the toughest is probably going to win because they're stronger and they're meaner and et cetera, because there's not a high level of technique or thought process or all the things. And so then the toughest people can also probably cut the most weight because they're the toughest, So whether or not they would have cut the most weight, they probably were going to win because they were the toughest. And so then a lot of people then correlated those things. Oh, that guy cut a lot of weight and he won. I have to cut a lot of weight in order to win also.
Interesting.
And so I think it was like highly correlational and not causational because even like, in current era, a guy like Jordan Burroughs, who, he's one of the best ever, but he, in the Olympics, wrestles at 74 kilograms, which is 163 pounds. Well, he went up and challenge it on Flow Wrestling. He challenged this guy named David Taylor, who's the world champ at 86. They're both from America. 86 kilograms, which is 22 pounds. I'm messing up the kilos. I think it's 22 pounds higher. And he lost, but it was 4-4, right? So I don't want to explain why it's not a tie, but it's 4-4, meaning that like those guys are kind of far apart weight-wise, but wrestling is wrestling. If you're really good at wrestling, a few pounds doesn't really matter all that much, you know?
Yeah.
If you're highly skilled, you're highly skilled. You can wrestle someone who's a few pounds bigger than you, and it's fine.
How big of a jump was it? So you're this illustrious wrestling career, college, Olympics, and then you go out to Asia.
Yeah.
And when you're in Asia, like how big of a leap is it to go from wrestling to actually like fighting in the cage?
Not for me. It wasn't that big at all.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I just always like. I mean, it's one of the big reasons why I did MMA. I mean, there's a couple, right? One of them was that there was no money in wrestling at that point in time. I just kind of liked fighting. I enjoyed watching it. Obviously, even in the early days, I was watching it when it wasn't popular. When Tough came out, then I watched it a lot. My college buddies watched it a lot. A few of them ended up fighting and having a lot of success. But I always just liked fighting, you know. And so for me, it wasn't really all that different. I've just kind of always enjoyed and still do enjoy combat.
Yeah. Did you guys get in a lot of fights in college?
I did not. That's not saying other people didn't, but yeah, I was generally kind of even-tempered. I still have never drank. So I was the one kind of watching out for everybody else, or like, you know, if they got in a fight, then I'm like, all right, you know, you gotta go. We gotta get you out of here. You know, I was the one taking care of everyone. So no, I generally didn't get in any fights. And probably just because I didn't get angry all that much. And, you know, obviously especially if you're a wrestler and you get a fight, there's probably a lot of negative things that can happen to you also.
Yeah, of course. So as you kind of go through your career, what was Asia like? We've talked about this before, but like one of the things as I've learned more and more about UFC, MMA, and like the history of a lot of this stuff, it seems like most of America was like completely unaware of what was happening in Asia.
Yeah.
And now there's maybe a little bit more awareness between the two.
Well, yeah, I mean, one championship specifically, they signed that, it's an Amazon Prime Video deal, right? So they're on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's once a month or I don't know exactly what the cadence is. Well, actually, Japan specifically. So one championship's out of Singapore, but they have cards kind of everywhere. But Japan specifically had this organization called Pride, which was, I don't recall when it was founded, probably somewhere in the mid to late 90s. And they were kind of, I don't know if you'd say the best, but
we would always see viral clips in the U.S.
Yes.
Like you wouldn't see anything, and then you just see this clip, and you'd be like, "Yo, I don't know where that person came from, but like that was crazy."
Yeah. Well, so they had. You could have definitely argued they had a better roster than the UFC for a while. There, the UFC actually ended up buying them along with a few other organizations. But I mean, one of the things that was hilarious about Pride was that they not only allowed PEDs, they encouraged PEDs.
What?
Yes. So I have, you know, I've had some friends, and they said, you know, they would say they would go over there to fight, and the owners, you know, it would say specifically on the contract, we do not test for PEDs, right, or steroids or anything. But they would say, hey, you're looking a little soft. Do you need anything? Is there anything we can get you?
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, that was and some of these guys were like almost larger than life in that sense, you know. And then, you know, most of them came to the UFC and had a relatively similar amount of success. There was a few that came over, and especially when USADA started testing in UFC, they, you know, there's some of them you could look at their records and they went like this. It's almost insane to me. I would think that I've never taken them, but I would think if I did take them, they would have a small boost on my performance. Maybe I get a little stronger, a little better endurance. But some of these dudes, they literally were like world champ level, and then they were like 1-7. And you're like, wait.
And you think PEDs can have that big of an impact?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the most obvious case, the one that like is...
let's get some names.
Well, it's almost indisputable. And listen, I cannot prove that... Well, actually, I think he got busted in the early days. So I can't prove this guy did, but a guy like Vitor Belfort. I don't know. Can we pull pictures on the screen?
No,
I always love that. We need a screen back here so I can pull so you guys can see these. But like, I mean, he is like, oh my God. Like you look at him, like you're like, holy crap. And then USADA comes in and you see a picture of him and you're like, wait, is that the same guy? Like, I wish you could see a picture right now so you could see the difference between the two bodies. Yeah. And it's just like, but there's a handful of people who you don't know that they took anything. Like there's no proof. I actually think he did test positive at some point.
Do you think the sport would be better off if people just were allowed to take it? No?
No. Well, I guess
you say that like it's a no-brainer, but I feel like there's a lot of people who would argue it would be better off if they did take it.
I mean, better off if you're saying strictly for my or your entertainment. I think you have an argument.
Okay.
If you think of like the athletes in the sport, because a lot of this stuff, there's not really much long-term data on the effects of it, right?
Of course.
And then there's also not long-term effects on, and this is one of the reasons I don't want to say I got out, but I stopped sparring for a while because there's no super long-term data on like CTE and brain trauma and stuff like that. And so now if you're telling me, well, I'm going to let you take a whole bunch of steroids and get better at giving people brain trauma, I don't know, it feels like a really dangerous
Do a lot
recipe.
of fighters talk about the brain stuff?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
I mean, so for me, I watched Concussion. I was actually flying to a fight in Asia, and I watched Concussion. I'm like, oh, that's kind of sketchy. And
you got one, or you watched?
No, I watched the movie. Remember the movie that came out?
Oh, the movie. Oh, yeah.
So the movie came out, and I watched it. I'm like, oh man. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna still keep fighting. I literally stopped sparring. That was 2016, and I didn't spar anymore because I'm like, well, why am I taking all this brain trauma in practice? Like that's just unnecessary. So I'm like, well, I'm still gonna fight. But so I did like a lot of pad work and other simulated stuff in practice. But then, I kept reading up on it, and I'm very skeptical because there was a study that came out later on CTE that I thought was just completely preposterous, and it said 99% of people who played football for more than 1 year have CTE, which, so if you're thinking like, well, that's like 94% of American males above the age of 40. And then it said, this was the one that really put me off. It said 87% of people who played only 1 year of football still developed it. And you're like, wait, okay, so that's going to be like everybody.
So basically, if you just get hit in the head at all.
Ever, yeah. So that was what I'm like, okay. Because obviously if you put the threshold low enough, you can get you can make these results that look really damning, and you put a bunch of people over the threshold by putting the threshold low. And so I think the jury's probably still out on that. And then, where my brain goes is lots of times these people who maybe fight in a cage for a living, or if you put NFL in like 70s and 80s and 90s, because it's where a lot of these tests run, it's like you probably had a really high threshold for risk. And a lot of these dudes are probably doing PEDs. They're probably doing...
Dude, Lawrence Taylor was taking cocaine during the game.
Recreational drugs, right? Late night partying.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do all these factors all mixed together in this? So
that's still the wildest sports story of all time to me. I don't care what... There's nothing that anyone will ever tell me that
John
is more
Jones
wild.
Said he
was doing what?
Cocaine.
Before the match?
I don't think it was actually before. I think it was like one day before. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he came out and said that.
Did he get busted ever for it?
He got busted for cocaine, yeah.
Yeah, but because he did it, fought, and then got tested right after the fight, or it was like during.
This is why I wish we had a screen we could bring up here. Okay, John Jones definitely got busted for it.
Yeah,
I don't recall
when it was.
I wanted so I think it was during a fight because with USADA they have a substance list that is in competition, right? So there's some substances they'll test for out of competition, right? So if I come to the gym and you're training, I'll test you for this list of shit,
and they just show up and they're like, let's go. Just go pee.
Yep. Pee or blood, right? Or both.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, but in competition, there's some other ones that get added to the list, right? So, and I'm pretty sure cocaine's one of them, or other recreational.
And our guys,
drugs.
this is a dumb question, but are guys like ducking them? Like, yo, they're here.
Well, John Jones,
runs out the back.
Jones, he's coming up a lot.
Yeah.
The big story is John Jones hid under the cage. The one time when you saw to look for him. Yeah. So
I mean, you got to like
train
literally. Of course, someone did that. Right? Like if they're there and you think there's a risk of getting busted, then I mean, it's like human nature. Like, dude, go in the closet, go under the cage, whatever, and and tell them I'm not here. Like, is that like a crazy? Are we surprised that someone did that?
You get 3 whereabouts. It's called whereabouts failures. So with USADA, I haven't been in the pool for a couple years. So I piloted in 2019. I piloted this thing where it was connected to your phone so they could see where you were at, which I thought that was tremendous because otherwise you got to fill stuff out, right? And then if I say I filled out,
you liked it that they knew where you were.
Yeah. Because I didn't want them to be like, because when I was in USADA when I was training for the Olympics, I mean, at that point in time, this is 2007, 8, you had to fill out paperwork and fax it, right? And so you had to do your schedule 3 months at a time. So if I told you, hey, I was going to be here from, what time did I get here? 10:30 to 12:30 or whatever, right? And so I put that on my schedule. Well, first of all, how am I know my schedule 3 months ahead of time?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But if I did put it on my schedule, and then you said, hey, actually, can we go at noon, right? And they showed up here at 10:30, I would have an hour to show up. Otherwise, I'm going to get a whereabouts failure.
Interesting.
Right? And so now in current landscape with email and text, it's, man, you kind of gotta be trying to miss a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
But back then it was like you had to, if I want to change something, I'm gonna have to fax paperwork somewhere. Like, well, I gotta go find a fax machine. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
And so when they show up, I recently saw, I'm gonna mess it up.
Costa?
No, I think it was I don't want to say names because I'm going to mess it up, but I came across an NFL player, an NBA player. I think an NBA player, and he said it was for the Olympics. He wanted to play in the Olympics, and he used a fake dick, and for the
you saw
the
it
piss
looks
test.
at your dick.
So this was the question. I think he was talking to Shannon. I think it was Shannon Sharp. I think, and basically he had a fake one, and he went in to go pee, and he said they didn't look, and he just used the fake one. And he made it look like he was peeing, but he had the fake one, and it was clean pee, and he made it, and I think he went to the Olympics. But I've always wondered because, like, in college, they 100% are not letting anything go.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
around,
is generally supposed to, not to get too profane on these cameras, but you're supposed to like pull your thing down here, and then you lift your shirt up here, so your stuff
so they can see
exposed, so they can see that there's none of that stuff going on.
Is there a lot of PEDs in college, you think, or not? Not really?
I mean, they test relatively frequently. There was actually, unfortunately, just in wrestling. There was 2 D3 kids that won nationals, one at 187 last year and one at heavyweight, who I believe got busted. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know, right? But listen, I'm sure there are, but how many kids actually get busted? It's really not that much.
I feel like it's easier to trick people in college than it is at the UFC. Which is like the pool of athletes is so much bigger, right? You have every wrestling team at every college.
Sure, yeah.
The group of people who are trying to figure that out is probably so much smaller than like on a per drug tester to like wrestler basis compared to the UFC. And also they kind of know like who's in, who's out, who are we paying attention to, who are we not, who's coming up with a fight. Like you can almost like start to back into like what would the cycling.
But the other thing in MMA is there's also way more money in it, right? And so when there's way more money in it, you have resources to figure things out. So I think there's probably, so if you look at, you can go back and USADA's website and see who's failed, and like the amount of wrestlers that have failed something since like 2008, it's like a really small number. Like there've been failures, but not a lot. And so they're testing. You got 3 styles of wrestling: men's, women's, and Greco, and they're testing probably the top 5 or 6 people per weight class. So it's not quite as many as the UFC, but it's a significant amount.
Yeah.
But you saw it in the UFC, you're seeing kind of a lot of failures, so you just kind of extrapolate that and say, well, if this many people are failing, there's probably a lot of other people who are also doing it, either getting away with it, or maybe they have better methods of doing it where they know they can pass tests. Because if you watch, you probably watch Icarus, right? They knew how to beat the tests.
Yeah. I also think there's just a lot, in other countries specifically, there's a lot of just pay. I'm not even going to take the test. Yeah. Right? You just pay someone off and.
Well, in Icarus, they were helping the Russian anti-doping. So, like, USADA is actually trying to catch us. They are not trying to help us. USADA was helping them figure out how to pass the test while still taking the substances. Yeah, so that was. That movie was wild. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. The part that the filmmaker is like taking drugs over like Zoom or whatever, right?
Yeah, that was
and he's like doing it, and his point was like, this is crazy how much more performance I get out of my body by doing this. And he's like, no shit, no wonder they're all trying to take this stuff.
Yeah. Well, what I thought was fascinating about that part of it was he actually didn't do that much better in the race. So his numbers were all way better. Like it was like power output or whatever it was, were like way better. But then when it actually came to doing the race, so the one year he did the race clean, and then the next year he doped, he didn't do that much better in the actual race, which I found that part to be really fascinating. And I wish they would have. And I know the movie took a different turn because of who that guy Rodchenko ended up being. But I wish they would have discussed kind of like more about the second year and why his performance wasn't that good despite his numbers and everything being way, way up.
All I know is Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds aren't hitting the 75 home runs or whatever.
But wasn't everyone in that era doing something?
Of course,
okay,
but the whole point is like it's kind of like Aaron Judge, right? Like they see the numbers and they're like, yeah, we get what the real record. No.
Oh.
He just hit a 60-second home run, right? And so there's still this like. Yeah, we know what the record is, but also there's like the purists still appeal to the 61, right? And so I think that there is this very weird recognition of, okay, somebody did at one point hit over 70, but also like asterisk, whatever.
Yeah. But weren't the pitchers doping too? That was because I was kind of a baseball fan. So if they're doping, they're harder to hit too. So it's kind of like an equivalency.
My favorite is that they've gone back and forth on like the stuff that they put on their hats, like the slick stuff or whatever. And then you've got like the tar on the bat, like all this stuff. So it's like, look, where's the line? And
that's a good one.
If you think about, there's a world where athletes used to smoke cigarettes, eat hot dogs, like do all this stuff in the dugout, right?
Yes.
And then somebody was like, I'm going to stop smoking cigarettes, but I'm still going to drink beer and eat hot dogs.
Yes.
And somebody else was like, I'm going to stop drinking beer and eating hot dogs. And like somebody was like, I'm going to go for a run. And somebody was like, I'm going to lift weights. And like, it's like there has been this progression, right? Like Babe Ruth looks like an average, 50-year-old male today. Yes. And he's out here hitting bombs, right?
Yes. But what about in the 70s in baseball? So I used to love all sports, and I really read a lot of biographies. They had these things. I can't remember what they're called now, like greenies maybe, where they were like uppers. There was some type of amphetamine that was like anyone could grab in the in the locker room.
But like. Okay, so you do that. That's not allowed, let's say, right? But like Gatorade's allowed.
Yeah.
Right? And now, again, Gatorade is focused on helping you recover, right? Electrolytes, like the whole thing. So it's like we have made decisions as to what's allowed and what's not. And I know before everyone freaks out, it's like they're talking about steroids and Gatorade, right? But like...
Pomp doesn't know the difference.
But like when you look at this, there is a world where... medicine and technology is going to continue to like, what if somebody says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a chip in my brain.
That's going to be
like,
weird.
Is that going to be allowed?
I don't want to discuss. Who was it on? Someone was on Lex talking about that, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit.
But like,
what was his name?
Are we going to allow athletes? Like, is there going to be a brain enhanced division and a non-brain enhanced division?
Yeah, that's going to be weird.
Right? Like, what's better, taking PEDs or putting a brain in your chip or putting a chip in your brain, and like, do you get faster reaction times from the chip?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I actually got this theory on the specifically anabolic steroids and PEDs.
Okay.
Because I think you're right. I think there's it's maybe tougher than people want to admit to draw the line of where we're gonna draw the line of what you can and can't use. But I think the really negative connotations towards steroids, because they don't necessarily have those in a lot of other countries, it's American-centric specifically, is because everyone associated the communists with using the steroids, right? And it was the Cold War, and so anything they're doing is really bad. The East Germans and the Russians and CCP. Yeah. So
those dudes did look stacked.
Well, they were giving it to women too. Remember, it really messed them up. It was bad. It was not good.
Can you imagine that being your job?
Well, there was I believe there's a bunch of women's records. I hope I'm right on this. I need someone to fact check me right now while I'm saying all these things. I believe there's a whole bunch of women's records from the era in track and field that still haven't been beaten.
Really?
Because they were using such so many performance enhancers, and then obviously it started having really negative effects on their just everyday life, so they backed off on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do wonder how many people in business take PEDs, like Jeff Bezos. He's doing something.
He's obviously.
My guy's doing something.
No, he's obviously.
He may just be working out.
No, he's not. But that's what it's like. Okay, listen. Okay, so you asked me earlier, like about PEDs in MMA. And when you're trying to cause harm to another person, I think there's probably, for me, the line is a lot more clear. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about baseball, I'm trying to hit a ball. Like, I don't give a damn what I really don't.
Because it's less about you're hurting other people, and it's more just what you choose to do with your own body.
Yeah, so that that would be more like I don't care quite as much. I mean, you would still have the competitive nature of like if you and I are trying to make a major league team, and you're taking it, now do I feel like I have to take it in order to, so you have that thing. But when you're talking about like how old is Bezos, 50, 60, something like that. Yeah. He wants to take some of these things, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, okay. You're not competing with anyone, just go do it.
Yeah, and he's doing something, right?
Yeah, obviously.
And it could literally, part of what I'm always like careful of is like, it could just be like hormone optimization.
Yeah.
Or it could be like he's getting injected with things, right? And maybe those are the same thing. Maybe those are two different programs, whatever. But also it goes back to, is there a problem with it? Right? Like if you go to, so I invested in a company, they do testosterone enhancement, right? And I've been scared shitless. I haven't taken the product or anything because I'm like, I don't know what it does. I just don't know enough. I don't know the science, right? But like, it's fascinating to me that they've done a bunch of work. They have people who are using it. These people are not like Joe Blow on the street at like, you know, Gold's Gym who are like, oh, let me just get whatever the guy next to me has. These are super educated, you know, high income people who've done the work, usually under a doctor who's recommending whatever. And a lot of the benefits they talk about are not like get washboard abs, get massive biceps. It's like mental clarity, higher energy, like things that people are like, yo, I would like that. Like I drink 6 cups of coffee a day because I'm trying to, you know, get clarity, right? So like it does feel like we focus on the physical attributes, but there are mood, energy, clarity, you know, mental clarity, whatever, that I think most people are actually okay with maybe.
Yeah, I don't care about a Jeff Bezos or a business person doing whatever they're doing. And I think there's probably at this point more than, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, money going into that, right? There's a lot of people who want to figure out, how do I feel as good as possible, as long as possible? I was just listening. There was that guy on Rogan, Brigham Bueller, kind of talking about that.
What was he saying?
Well, he was talking about, which I freaking tried to do it twice and I failed, but stem cells. I was going to go to Colombia.
Really?
So, in 2020, or was it 2020?
What is it?
2020. Stem cell. They have
explain what's the purpose of it?
So I have some. So it's not like they're terrible. My shoulders kind of like doesn't, you know, loss of range of motion. My hips not this so I had surgery on this one. This one's not that great. My brother has some neck issues and some back issues. So and I just heard really positive things like
they take your stem cells.
No. It's called I believe so. There's 2 ways to pronounce it, mesenchymal or mesenchymal.
Okay.
And they're supposed to be like really, really good for your body's regeneration. And I was going to go one time, and I can't remember something happened. And the second year, they told me I had to get vaccinated, and I said, you ain't going to force me to do nothing. Right, I'm out. Right, the Colombian government said
we're going to hit you up with stem cells, but you also have to take.
So I said I'm out. So I might go back at some point. I don't know. But he was talking about stem cells and their positive effect. He was also talking about for his self. He was overweight and trying to get in shape, and he couldn't figure out why. And so he took a big blood panel, and his testosterone was really, really low. And once he got that back up to, like, I guess, normal levels, like, everything started getting a lot better. So I think there's going to be a lot of research going into, like, health and wellness and how do we feel as good as possible as long as possible.
You saw the Dana White thing where he said he got the blood panel done and he lost like 30 pounds or whatever?
Yeah.
It feels like that was the single greatest ad for anything in the world.
Yeah,
right? It's just like a guy who's just like, yo, this changed my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is like totally off topic, but I was just thinking, I actually almost went like Instagram Live just to talk. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know if you ever do this, but it's like, you just need to talk about something. And so you just want to talk and you want people to hear you, and like, you don't really care about their
What did you want to talk about?
How fat everyone was in Las Vegas. I was just there a couple days ago.
Really?
It felt like, oh my God, why is everyone so fat?
Like average people.
Just walking around. Like,
bro, do you understand you live in America?
I know. And
the average American is fat.
I understand, but it seemed like I don't know what was hitting me, but it seemed like extra fat. And it was like, how do you people not realize this is having such negative long-term effects on your body, on your mind, on all of these things, you know? And so and then, you know, just coupled with a couple of those podcasts, it's like, I think people are just so, not all people, because I think highly successful people are really into their health right now and like figuring out, how do I do this best? How do I take care of myself? How do I age well? But there's a lot of America who's just like jamming whatever fast food. Food's kind of unhealthy. Whatever medicine my doctor gives me, I'm taking that. Whether, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I think there's a lot of Americans who probably cure their health problems by losing 70 pounds and just working out on a daily basis.
This isn't as much of a hot take today as it probably was 5 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. I think that a lot, not all, but a lot of the mental health issues in America are due to bad diet, bad exercise habits, like all the like health stuff. And I recently had a guy who's a heart surgeon. He came on. He was talking about the relationship between metabolic health and mental health. And so like we love to talk about the mental health stuff, right, as a society, and I think it's more so entered the like lexicon and kind of culture or whatever. And I think it's well documented that people are unhealthy, but there isn't like this connection. And so it's, again, even if it was 10% of people who have a mental health challenge, obstacle, or problem, if they could simply eat better and work out, and that would cure that, or maybe even just mitigate it to some degree, like that seems like a thing we should go do tomorrow. Right?
Absolutely.
But that's not the thing that gets told. It's like, take this medicine, do this, like.
I don't know why. Well, I was so not man. You're not. So you're taking me right down the path of like all the different Instagram lives I've thought about doing. I actually do this Mental Monday, so I do one a week, and I was actually just probably gonna do this one. I had a different one planned for today, but I was probably gonna just put this one into place because I've read these 2 books recently. And they both.
What are the books?
It was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the second one.
What was it about?
It's about it's that damn journalist who does the undercover journalism. What's his damn name?
Who?
Project Veritas. What's that guy's name?
I don't know the guy's name.
O'Keefe.
Yeah, James O'Keefe.
Yes, him. His book. I don't recall what the name of the book is right now, but he was talking about doing.
Man, those are really onto. You're going for like the full barbell.
But it was, it was about doing hard things, and then so with my daughter, I talked about. I genuinely think the mental health stuff in America is because we have too much times and our lives are too easy.
Yeah, it's boredom. 100%.
Well, yeah, I'm like, dude, you're out like think about America 100 years ago, and you're a farmer and you're out working in the fields all day. You ain't got much time to think about how you feel. Like, no, you just got to keep picking the corn or whatever. Like your life is hard, or instead of driving somewhere, you got to walk somewhere, right? I mean, like life is just hard, and you're worried about how do I get done with my day and how do things. And I'm sure the world is much better today than it was 100 years ago. But there's something to be said there. And then to pair that with the books, it's like, what I was thinking was, because I was thinking about my athletes, and because a lot of the talks go to my athletes, and it's on the wrestling page, is why do so many people want the easy way? And when we think about positive things, when you think about like what you look up to and what inspires you, you're always thinking about that person who did that hard thing, who overcame that adversity, who has this amazing story, and you are inspired by them. And you're like, wow, that person, he freaking grinded it out. It was so amazing what they did, But then a lot of people are like, what's the easiest way I can do this? It's like, no, like that's not what you should want. You should accept that it's going to be hard. If you want something great, you got to accept that it's going to be hard, and you got to be totally okay with that. And you got to grind. I mean, that's so I did give a book talk at the Lake Convention last week, and
you have a chapter on attitude, which is like exactly what I feel like. It's just knowing that the hard stuff is the good stuff for you.
Yeah, but it's so okay. So it's like anything really good is going to take you so many years of hard work. I talk about like when I was 15, and it was I talk. There's a couple of things, but it's like that was completely delusional. But I decided I wanted to go to the Olympics. And given where my success was at that point in time, there's probably no good basis for that. I just figured out that's what I was going to do. But it was 8 years away. 8 years, and there were so many points along that journey where it's like you hit this adversity and you think like, shit, am I really going to make it? Like I ended up being really good in high school, but then I go to college and like, I say the funny thing, you played football, and that's I don't want to pick on you, but it's kind of easy because if you're not good in football, they're like, hey man, like you go stand over there and like hang out for a little bit. If you're not good in wrestling, you're getting your face rubbed in the mat. Like if you're not the starter, if you're not the guy, you're getting beat up on by the guy every day. There's no go sitting on the sidelines. You're getting face rubbed in the mat. So it's like, it's very humbling. And so, like my freshman year, I went to college and it's like, I'm getting my ass kicked like every single day. It's like, dude, I want to go to the Olympics. I was really good in high school. I'm literally getting my ass kicked every day. And it's
why didn't you quit?
Because so honestly, that was probably for my wrestling journey. That was the part where I most said, can I really do this? Can I really do this? This is what I want to achieve. Can I really do this? And, that was where, the scrambling came and all this stuff, but it was just like, yeah, you got to make that decision. Like, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to come back the next day. I'm going to fight. I'm not going to get too discouraged. And, obviously there's a few points along that journey where you're like, dude, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I suck. Like, I'm getting my ass kicked every day. But you just keep coming back, you know? And then eventually there's something that happened. I can tell you, you know, I didn't put this in the book, but I can tell you exactly what happened for me. You curious? You want to know?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I got my ass kicked all fall in the wrestling room. So I go to college. I got my ass kicked all fall. I don't know why I didn't put this in the book. I probably should have put this in there. And I lost a whole bunch of matches. I lost 8 matches in high school. In my 4 years of my actual college career, my non-redshirt year, I only lost 8 matches. In that fall, I lost 10 matches.
Wow.
You know? So it's like I'm getting my ass kicked in the room every day, and then I'm losing to guys who like aren't really that good. And so I'm like, you know, having this like, can I really be good? Like, am I really ever going to be able to do this? And I went back, and it was a non-recognition of the improvement I was making. Because when I left, me and my high school coach were very competitive. Like, I was starting to get the better of him a little bit, but he was probably still beating me more often than not. Mm-hmm. I went back 4 months later, right? So you leave in August. I came back in for a Christmas break, and like, he couldn't score me. Like,
really?
Yeah. And it was like, oh, and then for me, it was like, it was this mental hurdle of like, oh my God. Yeah. I actually got a lot better. Mm-hmm. I got a lot better. Like, I didn't realize it because I'm getting my ass kicked in the room every day, and I'm losing these matches to college guys. But holy moly, I got a lot better. Mm-hmm. You know, it was just, and it clicked for me, and I'm like, okay, you know. And then I still had a few kind of like maybe a handful of months till I really started like getting a lot better, but it clicked for me that day.
What's fascinating about this, Robert Greene's got a book, Mastery, that I recently reread.
I love that book, actually.
And one of the big things is like everyone thinks mastery is just genius or like a stroke of luck or whatever. And he goes through example after example after example, including things like, you know, Albert Einstein's brother runs like a publishing shop, and so he gets to understand. Yeah. Ben Franklin's brother runs a publishing shop, whatever. Charles Darwin goes on this like 7-year journey around the world. He's like collecting specimens from all these different places, and he like realizes like, oh shit, maybe there's like evolution, right? Yeah. Or whatever. But it also talks about like the grind, right? Yeah. It's like these people usually start out and they have no mastery. Yeah. And they go through the apprenticeship phase, like whatever. But he talks about this like essentially decades long journey to build the mastery. And so you saying like, I want to go to the Olympics, like I'm not that good right now, but 8 years from now, it's like, pretty much, you know, you overlay that to his theory, and it almost plays out perfectly because you have to do every single day for hours a day and just build up the skill sets until you get to a point where you're like, yo, I can actually do this. Yeah. So there's the notion that we should desire something that's easy. It's such a flawed notion, right? If you get it easy, everyone can have it. You know, if it's easy, then everyone's going to go get it. Like, we shouldn't want the things that are easy. We should strive for the things that are hard. So, you know, that, and then, like, I go with AWA now, that's Askren Wrestling Academy. My brother and I, and actually my high school coach, started it. And, you know, we're 11 years in now, and we've made, like, insane strides, but it's like, at no point was that easy. You know, it wasn't easy. What was the hardest part about building that business?
Well, first of all, I actually, you know what's so funny? I just met at the homecoming game in Mizzou. I met the dean of the business school, and it was like, I wish I would have taken a business class. I took zero. You know? So, I mean, for starters, I had to learn a lot of lessons the hard way because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, you know? So
you and your brother just get together one day and you're like, yo, let's start a wrestling academy?
Well, okay, so he had some serious injury issues. As I kind of said with the stem cell thing. He had some serious injury issues after college, and he went and just coached for this family out of actually in New York, out of college, and then it wasn't enough time. You know, there was like, it can't occupy his day, so he's like, what else do I do? So I'll start a wrestling academy to kind of go along with that. So he started a wrestling academy out there, and then our high school coach was, you know, the high school associations have really strict regulations on how much they can coach and stuff. He kind of always wanted to coach year round. So like, hey, why don't we start this, and we'll, you know, it'll go year round, so you can coach all the time. And then incidentally, I also moved back to Milwaukee because I wanted to train at Rufus. And then Max then moved back from New York a couple years later. So we've been building ever since. But yeah, I mean, so the business aspect was first of like, how do we do this?
You just like literally go get a building and you're like, hey, we're going to rent this.
I'll give you a stupid one. And this is like, if I would have been more seasoned, I probably would have been like, go F yourself. But we were opening our first academy, and the building inspector says, actually, you need this size of air conditioner or something like that. So we bought a $20,000 air conditioner because they said we needed it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I don't know, like, a couple of buildings don't have any air conditioning at all. Like, there's no way we actually needed that. Like, he freaking pulled it over. You know, it was probably honestly the building owner and the city supervisor working or whatever is working together to kind of maybe make something nicer, because we thought we could take that with us when we leave. You know, we cannot. So. Yeah, so it's just something stupid like that, you know, where it's like that kind of play test in the beginning. And then, I mean, I don't know if I want to go into the wrestling business too much, but
is it a good business?
No.
No.
I love it, so I'm going to do it forever. But like, you know, you obviously have like mostly fixed costs. When we talk about the wrestling academy stuff and you know, the rent and the salaries and stuff like that. But you know, any Joe Schmo, and there's a lot of them, think they can start one, and they can, if they're compelling enough, they can convince a few people that they know what the hell they're talking about. You know, so if you do that and then 3 other people do that, and they pull, you know, each pull 10 kids and convince those 10 kids they know what the hell they're talking about. This happens, right? But that's 40 kids that we don't have in our academy now. And, you know, eventually their gig is going to be up because people will realize they're not really very good at coaching. But who knows? Maybe that's 2 years or 3 years or 4 years down the road. And so you kind of have these, like, mom and pop shops kind of like opening up a lot. And, you know, the barrier to entry for something like that is really low.
You should just go wrestle them.
Just go whoop their ass,
Like, okay, fine. You can open up if you can beat me.
It's not a bad idea.
Right? In the book, by the way, I have to call this out because there's not very many books I read that have this. You have a quote from yourself.
Yes.
At the attitude chapter, it says, every fighter is only as good as their last performance. You have a great performance. Everyone thinks you're the champ. You look like shit. Everyone tells you suck. And it just says, me. Like, first of all, quoting yourself is awesome. But, like, I do think social media, like, that is a perfect example, right? When things are going well, it's like everyone loves you. When things are not going well, I've literally seen people who I thought was like, that person's best friend is now like dunking on them.
Oh, really?
On social, of course. But like, what you realize is like, they actually weren't best friends. You just thought they were, or like the perception was they were close friends or whatever. But obviously not. And so it feels like social media exasperates just like the human condition, right? And so you do see people fall in and out of favor very quickly. And I wonder how that plays into whether it's wrestlers or other types of kids who are growing up. And like, I don't know, when I was a kid, like, we didn't have Twitter. Right? We didn't have a lot of this stuff. We had AOL Instant Messenger. But like, that was it.
I think we're the same age, so I remember that.
Yeah, like, that was pretty much it. And so, like, you could talk to your friends, but like, the most like social signaling you could really do there was like your away message, right? Or like your like maybe your handle or, you know, your like a name or whatever. But like, can you imagine growing up now and have TikTok and Instagram and like?
So me and my wife are my wife's trying to spearhead this thing where a lot of the families at our school agree to not give our kids social media or cell phones until 8th grade.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's great. I support her in that, and I think it's great.
So all the kids, if none of them have it, then none of them want it.
Correct. That would be the thing, because that's why that's why a lot of people give the reason why they're giving their kids phones is because their friends have it and they're not getting invited or whatever. Yeah, but I think I mean, to your point, I think social media is a lot for adults to handle. But I mean, for real though. So I learned early on. So in the book I talk about this. When I was 15 years old, so I was a sophomore in high school, I was headed towards the state tournament, okay? And someone tells me, so it was the last weekend's sectionals, and I kill everyone, and I was really good that year from a state perspective. And they say, hey, there's these forums, and everyone's talking about you. Okay, what's a forum? I don't know what that is. You know, like, this is 2000, year 2000. So I didn't know what that was. So I'm like, okay, I'll go, send me the address. I'll check it out, whatever. So I go there, and all these people are talking about me, and you know, I was 15. So I'm like, no, I'm going to kick his ass, and I'm going to kick his ass.
Oh, it's like the competitors are in there talking.
No, not the competitors. It was other people talking about how these other dudes were going to beat me at the state tournament, you know? And so I'm like, nope, I'm going to whoop him. I'm going to whoop him. And all of a sudden it became really talked about. And then the next week I went and whooped him. You know, and then I went back on the forums. I partied on all these dudes. You know,
you're like writing. You're actually writing.
Oh yeah, I was partying on them so hard. But then I realized like it's mostly adults. You know, and then I started like diving into like the next 2 years I would just try to torture these people like with just doing different stuff to make them angry, and I realized like how easy it was to manipulate groupthink and how groupthink moves.
What would you do to like piss them off?
Oh, like all kinds of like, okay, one time I was walking on the street and I saw this person with a boiled pig. And I'm like, hey, give me I'll give you $20. Can I have that? And they're like, sure.
A boiled pig?
A blown up pig. It was like, you know, like I don't even know why. But anyway, so I'm like took it to the tournament. You know, my hair growing out. People really hated that.
Why?
Because wrestlers are supposed to have hair like you. You know, look. You know.
I look like a wrestler.
Yeah, you look like a wrestler. Well, you need some more ears, but yeah. And then I carried a boombox around, right? Just all kinds of. I put an X on the mat where I was going to pin someone a few times. You know, like, you know.
Wait. Yeah. Hold on. On the mat, you went out there before the match. And put an X like in tape or something.
Yeah, tape. You tape a little X, and that's where I'm going to pin them.
And then would you do it?
Yeah.
You gotta imagine that people, even in the stands, were like, "This so fucking mad. Cocky dude," right?
Yeah.
But like, if you do it, then like,
yeah.
I mean,
no, they're still mad. Of course, they're still mad about it. Yeah. So you realize at a young age, I was able to realize like how this like group think works and how you know how favor goes to and against you. So obviously, I mean, crypto, we saw this, right? It was insane in the last year or whatever with the bear market hitting, and to me, it's like whatever, like. I'll be in here the next cycle and the next cycle.
I can't get over you putting an X on the mat and then pinning someone there.
Yeah, that was so someone else allegedly. I guess there's no video of this because the guy's older, but there was this guy who actually the pinning trophy. I won the best pinner in college twice, and the trophy is the Shallis Award. So it's named after this guy named Wade Shallis. The legend is he did it, right? So I heard about him doing it, and I'm like, I'm gonna do that too. So I did it a few different times.
And then you got the pinning award.
Yeah, and then then that was many years later. But
Did you ever do it in college?
I don't think I ever did in college.
Yeah. I feel like that's like doing it in high school, you can get away with a lot of stuff. In college,
I probably should have done it in college.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be pretty impressive. Imagine if you went to the Olympic match and went out and just did it.
That would be awesome, huh?
I mean, I don't know what the reaction would be. Okay, I do feel like the Olympics are a little bit crazier. Like, because you have like the countries, like the national respect and like all that kind of stuff. So if you pulled off that type of thing, like it's like an international incident,
It'd
right?
Be a legend, though. You'd be a legend.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. The I always like the track, the 4x100 or whatever, where the guy's got like sunglasses on and stuff, and you're just like, dude, that guy don't give a fuck. Like he's gonna run as fast as he can, and like, let's go America. Right? Like,
doesn't America always win that one?
Of course.
I'm not much. Okay.
But also, to be fair, across all of track and field, like that's really where I think a lot of people got busted for years and years and years. Oh my God, for years it was happening. Yeah. Right? There was, I'm not going to use names, but there was. Well,
did they actually get busted or no?
I went to high school in North Carolina, in Raleigh, and our high school track was one of the nicer tracks, and so a bunch of these Olympic athletes would come and they would train at the track. So like you'd like go out there and like I'm talking about like. The top Olympic sprinters would be there sometimes, and you like walk out of class and be like, "That is like they're fast, right?" Yeah. Like, but like this is real. And a bunch of them got busted over the following years, and some of them came back or whatever. Yeah. But I remember thinking, just like, dude, sure, like if they did it, whatever. But like. I saw them out there working their asses off, right?
Well, of course they do both.
Right, yeah. But like I think the narrative had swung so much of just like steroid use versus like, I don't know, man. I'd look outside the classroom and I'd see them up there running and like they looked like they were sweating.
Yeah, well that's like to me that was like the Tour de France. Yeah. Like I know Lance, like a lot of kind of negative things came out about him. Yeah. But it was like that race, I don't care what you use. Them mugs still rode 150 miles a day or something.
Crazy.
Like it's crazy, you know. So and then obviously all of them in that one again. These are not combat athletes, right? Yeah. All of them are on it, just across the board, like 100%. They're all using. So it's like, whatever.
You're pedaling a bicycle.
Pedaling a bicycle.
Like, but that's where I always go. Like, how much time and effort goes into preventing it versus just like, dude, just be like free game. You can take whatever you want. Who can do it?
Yeah. I mean, with something like that, I mean, 2,000 miles of bicycling or whatever.
Just let them take whatever they want.
They probably were. I mean, at that point in time.
Yeah, just let them take whatever they want and see what happens. As long as it's not a sport where you could literally kill somebody or hurt somebody. Right?
Yeah. I wonder if there's, and I don't know anything about the PEDs, but there's probably some level of some substance there that you could take so much you would probably kill yourself, right?
Well, what I don't know. What I actually think would be more interesting is just like legalize. It's kind of like the war on drugs, right? Yeah. Like, dude. If they make weed legal, my guess is that they're going to have less problems with it.
Yeah.
Right? So same thing here. It's just make it legal and say whatever you do, you have to do under a doctor's supervision.
Yeah.
We'll provide the doctors.
That's interesting.
Right? Would it increase the safety of what they're already going to try to do anyways? Probably.
Yeah, it's definitely a chance.
I don't know. Somebody will get mad because I'm not an expert in PED usage in the cycling industry. Sorry.
That's one funny thing about podcasts these days is obviously, like you and I, we say have a high level of knowledge in certain aspects of our lives, right? But it's not like we're experts about everything. But so then certain people say like, well, if you're not an expert, you can't talk about that. It's like, well, why can't I? You go have conversations on the couch with your buddies about whatever the hell you want.
By the way, have you seen the experts talk about some of this stuff? They're not exactly the smartest
with the health experts are like 400 pounds. But like, why can't we talk about something? Like, this is just two dudes having a conversation. Like, I'm sure you're going to...
Do they get mad at you?
Oh, you'll see. I mean, I see it with like, especially, who gets it the worst, which is, I'm sure he ignores it, but it's Rogan.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like...
But I heard the best description. Somebody was like, Joe Rogan is sitting in a room with Google trying to figure shit out, and that's what everyone else is trying to do too, right? Like that's why he is so popular.
And he has access to really smart people because of who he is. Yeah, but so it's like, I don't understand. It's not like Joe Rogan ever says, I know everything. You have to listen to me.
Of course not.
He never says that.
He says the opposite.
He's just a dude trying to figure things out. And it's like every dude, when they go to the bar or they're sitting on the couch with their buddies, they talk about something like they have some level of expertise. And it's just people having conversations trying to figure out information.
Of course.
And so when people do it they're like, Pomp doesn't know shit about bicycle racing. Why is he talking about bicycle racing?
Well, I can ride a bike, so I'm further along than some people, right? I mean, that's how I think, though, right? It's just like, I don't know what the answer is, but it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things that I thought would be interesting to hear your perspective on, we talked about brain-computer chips going in the athletes. Do you ever think that we'll see humans fight machines?
Who is this? I gotta look this up now. Who was the one that it totally freaked me out because he was talking about chips in the brain? It wasn't Balaji. It was on Lex though. I'm gonna look this up.
And somebody was talking about.
It was relatively recently.
Okay.
He was talking about what is that term that they use for when
Singularity?
Yes, the singularity. Totally. Ray Kurzweil.
Oh yeah, Ray Kurzweil.
He's
yeah.
Famous.
Yeah. Oh, he's super famous.
I don't know.
He basically came up with the singularity concept.
Yes, it was freaking me out. But
and for those that don't know, singularity is the merging of the human and the machines together.
But the most obvious to me, and I don't even know why. I mean, maybe it's too stupid for them to even discuss. But it's like, okay, if I put something in my brain, how come someone can't hack it? Right?
Yeah,
I'm effed.
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
can't they say go murder that guy or just shut off? Just shut off. Like if I let someone put something in my brain, like surely there's some nefarious things that can happen. Right?
I forget the Netflix series. In the series, it's like the political drama series that was like super popular. It's one of like the first ones that Netflix did.
I don't watch
really
any TVs
popular.
So
it's like maybe
Homeland.
8 years ago.
I watched that show.
Homeland was good though.
Okay, yeah.
It was like that, but it was all about American politics, and this guy was trying to become president or became president.
Was it House of Cards?
House of Cards.
My wife watched that one.
Yeah,
okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's that one. One of the characters has a pacemaker, and they like think it's going to be hacked or it gets hacked or something, and I'm like, yo, I'm out. Like I am so out. But the problem is that like if you need a pacemaker, like there's not any other option.
Yeah, for real.
So like in that situation, fine. Yeah, but like the brain implant, same thing. But like, forget for a second.
It's freaky. Would you do it? Someone says you can do it right now.
My biggest concern would actually be the safety of it. Like I'm actually pretty conservative when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Like perfect example, right? Is I invested in the testosterone enhancement thing,
need to
but
get jacked like Jeff Bezos.
No, I'm good. But
maybe in a few years.
Wait till like my testosterone falls off a cliff, and then for sure. But what about humans and machines going into a cage and fighting each other?
Well, I just think I think it's preposterous because it probably wouldn't take much to make a machine win, right? Because how are you actually going to kill the machine? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
but like this becomes part of the game, right?
It would seem so easy for the machine to win. You know what I'm saying? Because like, say I'm going to leg kick you. Well, it's going to hurt you, right? Well, am I going to leg kick a steel leg of a machine? Like, that's going to hurt me, not it.
But like, this is where like you could see if the public had the option of watching, they 100% are watching that.
Man, I don't know. So I think this is like, what was that one show? And someone told me this still existed. Oh, BattleBots.
Oh yeah.
Someone told me it still existed.
Really?
But I don't really watch a lot of TV,
Yeah.
so I'm not certain. They told me this, where they tried to create the machines that would destroy each other. You know.
But that's not that interesting to me.
Well, okay, so I was going to say, I don't think it's that interesting, but so I think there's something about like the human body, and everyone knows we all have one, right?
Yeah.
We all have one body, and so to see what someone else can do with their human body, like fascinates us, whether it's running fast like the 100 or fighting or trying to hit home runs, because there's a part of us that we can all kind of feel what that would feel like, and if it was like a robot, it would just be weird, I think.
But like, part of me wants to know, like, can we kick the machine's ass or not?
No.
You don't think so?
Hell no.
Someone's gonna find out.
Come on.
I'm
not fighting that robot.
All right, so right now, would you fight a Boston Dynamics? Boston Dynamics robot. Is Ben Askren gonna fight the Boston Dynamics robot? Could you beat the robot?
Probably not, because how am I gonna hurt it?
I think right now you could beat it.
What am I gonna pull some wires out or something? Like, how do I hurt it?
You'd have to figure it out.
This sounds like a terrible proposition.
Right? But like,
Yeah.
that's my whole thing is like, right now, I think you actually could beat it. Yes, it'd be athletic, whatever, but like, you could still beat it. At some point, it'll get where, no, you couldn't.
I feel like,
In a wrestling match, you could beat the robot right now.
well, in wrestling match, I don't have to hurt it. I would just have to score
That's what I'm
points.
saying, right? So you don't have to hurt it.
I mean, okay, so this is I know nothing about robots, but I'm just thinking like, surely you could make the robot be like 10 times as strong as me.
Sure.
So then how am I gonna like do anything to it?
Scramble. I don't know.
No,
I don't know anything about wrestling.
Oh man.
Right? But like,
Yeah.
if it's strong but slow, like what I'm saying is like right now, I think that the robots are not in a place where like they are dexterous and agile and like all these things that you would need to actually be good at wrestling. So you can still beat them now. At some point, I agree you won't be able to, but right now I bet you still.
So I had this discussion with Lex when I was on his podcast about him and Danaher were talking about grappling robots and then how you could put AI and then make them simulate wrestling matches. Like they've done this with chess, right? And they simulate all different things that could happen. And I thought that would be fascinating with wrestling. Was wrestling at this point, and I think jiu-jitsu also, but I'm more of an expert in wrestling, it's still evolving at a really rapid rate. And so if you could have robots wrestle, they could move it at a more rapid rate even than what we're doing right now. But you know, like I know, like I don't know a lot of robots. I've seen some of those videos, and they are still a little bit clunky. Like they don't move super well. But I was thinking, and it's kind of like it speaks to how advanced the human brain is. Like if I just when I shoot a single leg, right? There's so many stimuli if you were wrestling each other for you to understand all at the same time, right? How much force am I shooting with? How much speed am I shooting with? Exactly where am I going? Where is the pressure being angled at? Am I trying to sweep behind you? Am I trying to go into you? Right? Like, and so you're kind of reading all of those at one, and then you're making an adjustment to your body. And then if I'm high level, right, I'm making an adjustment with my body. And so for a robot who can't like walk or jump or do things all that well, you know, having all those stimuli be understood, it's obviously magnitude's more complex than a game of chess, right?
Yep.
Chess is like there's no timing component to it, for example, right? You just have rules of where they can move. There's no pressure component to it. Like, am I putting pressure like here or is it here, or you know, like where on your leg is the pressure happening? You know, so yeah, no, I would be fascinated for wrestling robots someday. But it still feels like even if they didn't know the moves, they would still just be so powerful that you're not gonna be able to do things with them.
Yeah. You also boxed.
Yes.
Jake Paul.
Only once.
Yeah, one time. Why'd you do it?
Because they asked me if I wanted to.
And was it just like, this will be fun?
Well, okay. So first, you know, I see the highlight of him and Nate Robinson, and
What was your reaction when you saw the highlight first?
they both suck. Right? That was it. I think I tweeted. So I don't know. They have to go see what I tweeted to make sure I'm not lying. That's something to that effect, you know. And I was at this point. This is why I don't get mad about very much anything, but I'm kind of annoyed people don't give me any leeway for this. Like at this point, that was 3 months or 2 months after my hip surgery. Like I was supposed to be non-weight bearing for 3 months. You know, yeah, I got fat as shit because I enjoy eating, and I didn't get to work out because I can't put any weight on my leg. You know, and so then they call me and they're like, "Hey, would you really want to fight him?" And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of like fighting. Like, I don't know. He probably sucks. I'll probably beat him up. Sure. You know, like, why not?
So you went into it 100% thinking that you had a shot to beat him.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he wasn't very good, and unfortunately, I was wrong. But yeah, no. So okay. So first, my doctor had said you have to wait a year to do any like real live activity or wrestling or whatever. And so I'm like, well, I can't do it because I got to wait a year. Like I haven't done anything. I haven't ran. I haven't rode a bike. I haven't lifted weights. I haven't done anything. You know.
Yep.
So then I saw this dude, John Wayne Parr, who's a kickboxing world champ. He was kicking a bag, and he just had the same surgery I did. And I was like, wait, like, how's he get to kick a bag? This is bullshit. So I messaged him, like, hey, you just had that same surgery I did. Why are you kicking a bag already? Because he was like, I want to say he was like 4 months out or something, you know? And I was supposed to wait a year. And I think I was on like 3 months or whatever, you know? And so he said to me back, he said, well, my doctor said 3 months I can do whatever the hell I want. After 3 months I can do whatever I want. So wait, this is bullshit. Like, why is my doctor making me wait a year? So I called my doctor. I'm like, hey man, why do I gotta wait a year? And he's like, cause that's the recovery time you need. I'm like, well, how come this dude's kicking? I saw him kicking a bag, and it's only been 3 months. And his doctor said that's cool. And he's like, well, that guy, he actually knew the doctor. He's like, oh, that guy's got, because there's not a ton of people who do this specific surgery, right? He's like, oh, that guy's got a higher fail rate than me. I said, all right, what's your fail rate for your hips? And he's like, 1 in 998.
1 in 998.
Yeah. I'm like, I'll take my okay, I'll take my chances. So then I started training.
All right. And so when you go and you're doing the weigh-in, doing all the stuff and everything, are you guys cool? Or were you guys like talking shit? And
I would just say I was kind of indifferent to him. You know, kind of like I was trying to taunt him, of course.
There's like an entertainment aspect to it.
Well, just kind of also just get in his head, you know. Like, I mean, kind of what I figured about him is that he hadn't really been in very many real fights, you know. And there's something to it. You know, a lot of people get nervous when they fight and make mistakes and stuff like that. So that was kind of where I was at. So, I mean, I did have a good 3-month training camp. You know, obviously, so prior to that, I had my hip surgery and I was out. And then prior to that, I had been retired for 10 months or something. So I've been doing a lot of wrestling. Like I was in the wrestling room a lot, but no striking or no other type of mixed martial arts. But I did a good 3-month training camp. Felt pretty good. I lost a lot, even though I didn't look like great physically. I had lost a lot of weight from where I started, right? Because I did know nothing for almost 4 months with my hip. Yeah, and unfortunately, like, he just ended up being a lot better than I thought. I mean, he beat Tyron, and Tyron's a significantly better boxer than me. And now, you know, he's fighting Anderson Silva this weekend, and he's.
You think he can win?
Well, I mean, when you put this out, it might be done already. So, yeah, I mean, well, the odds makers say it's close, right? It's not like one's a huge favorite. They're relatively close on the odds.
Which alone, like, that's kind of surprising just to start, right?
Because
like, it's almost a Jake Paul win just for the odds maker to think it's close.
Yeah, because if I would say I was going to beat Anderson Silva in boxing, you'd say, like, yeah, ha. Like, that's funny. You know, like, it's not what I ever did. I mean, all of my striking mixed martial arts was more like, how do I make contact with you and then get you on the ground and then beat you up from there. That was everything I always did. So, yeah, I knew I wasn't very good at boxing. I just thought he also wasn't very good at boxing, you know? And then the one thing I kept coming back to, because this water's gone, dang. A lot of people said, like, you know, what if you lose? And it's like, well, I don't really ever care what the public thinks.
Yeah.
But when I was in high school, not every Friday night, but once in a while, we had some boxing gloves in my basement. And if we didn't have anything fun to do, a bunch of dudes would come over, and we'd be like, you versus you, you versus you. And we always thought that was a blast. Like, we always thought that was a fun Friday night. So I'm like, okay, when I'm in my 30s, they're going to pay me a whole bunch of money to do something that I literally did for fun and thought was a fun Friday night when I was 17. Like, I'd have to be an idiot to just not do this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's go.
I mean, I kind of like that mentality, right? So when you go and he hits you, you're down, you get up, you realize, like, I lost.
Yeah.
The next time I think I saw you on the video feed was you and Amy going through the tunnel laughing. And I was like, all right, they seem good.
Yeah. People were upset at me for that one.
Why?
Okay, so first of all, I told the ref, like, dude, I'm fine. Like, I got knocked down, but, like, I'm okay. I can fight now. And he just said no. And I'm like, that's bullshit, you know? So, you know, but I'm like, well, I guess I didn't really care anyways. Whatever. I'm fucking out of here. And I just left, you know? which actually I don't think I was supposed to leave, but then it didn't occur to me after the fact. It was just like, I guess I lost. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to leave. And then my wife, as I'm leaving, my wife is right there. And it's in so the other thing is it's in a football stadium, and there's no one there. So, our walk to get out of there is like 100 meters. But, I didn't really care to prove I was a great boxer. I was hoping I was a better boxer than him was the idea. But my wife at that point said something like, "Hey, did you realize Justin Bieber just opened for you and you're the main event?" And it was something like that, right? It was like, the whole week was just wild. Like, there's Justin Bieber, and then there was Snoop Dogg, and then it was just kind of like it was very circus-like the whole thing, And then it was like, all right, hey, let's go get my money and let's get out of here and I'll go back to coaching wrestling.
Do people know how much you got paid?
Yeah, I made close to $1 million between all the sponsorships and everything else. Yeah, not terrible. For something that I would have considered a fun Friday night when I was 17.
Yeah. So do you think that I'll just call it the YouTuber boxing world, which I would argue Jake has escaped. He's no longer being hey, you go fight a YouTuber, you whatever. Now he's got real competition, right? However you want to measure that. Do you think that YouTuber entertainment boxing stuff has legs to it?
Yeah, I don't know. Other people are trying. So yes, the circus thing. I guess his last fight didn't sell. There's rumors. I'm not certain. His last fight wasn't selling that well, and that some people say that's why it was canceled. This fight, which I don't want to put this up, but it's happening October 29. Some people are saying it's not selling that well. The whole shtick is over type thing. So I don't know. I think he's actually kind of good at boxing, and I guess we'll see how far he takes it. Can other people do it? I'm not sold.
I think he's a very unique person to be able to do this, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked to him about it specifically of just there's. If you think in society in general, the ability to reinvent yourself over and over again. So Kim Kardashian is probably the epitome of this, right?
Really? I don't pay any attention to her. So
sex tape, reality TV star, entrepreneur, criminal justice reform. I personally believe governor or president.
What?
100%.
Oh my God.
Kim Kardashian is president in our life.
So let me ask you this, because I don't know anything about Kim. I know the sex tape. I know the reality show. I didn't watch it at all.
Which the sex tape for the reality star?
I actually have never seen either one. But entrepreneur, did she actually do all of those things? Because there's obviously a lot of people who lend their name to stuff, and they're at least smart enough to find really smart people to run their projects.
Yep.
There's something to be said for that, for sure, right? But did she actually start those? I am personally running Askren Wrestling Academy. Me and my brother and my high school coach, right? And so I'm actually running those things.
She's running it. Yeah. So I didn't know, but the reason why I say with pretty high confidence, she's really involved in this stuff.
Yeah.
There's multiple things that she's done where you can see it's the same playbook over and over again.
Okay.
And it's working. But then I heard or watched her and David Letterman. Letterman's got a show on Netflix or whatever, right? Yeah. And he interviews her. I was blown away. I was like, man, she's way more articulate than people would probably give her credit for.
Okay.
And the way, look, she's got media training, she got all this stuff. So you got to strip that away. But it's very easy to see that could be the leader of a business, up there talking, saying these things, whatever. And you're just okay, there's more to this. And then you also have to not forget, she brings marketing power where you post on Instagram, right? There's a lot of founders who are trying to build Twitter audiences so they could get people to buy their product. She shows up and she's millions. We can sell stuff.
Well, and then between her and her siblings and everyone else, kind of in that what you call it, universe or they have
they cross promote stuff. They you know what I mean? So there's things there for sure that they can do.
Interesting. No, when you say reinvent yourself, who I think of is Steve Jobs. When you start reading about him, that he went and kind of saved Pixar, for example.
He became a billionaire off Pixar first.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. Most people don't think of, when they think of Pixar, they don't think of Steve Jobs, but he was highly influential in bringing that business back and then putting the effort in necessary to get them to the next level, and then you think about okay, what he did with Apple, but then he made iTunes, for example, who put music on a phone? It was kind of him. You know?
Yeah.
And so you think like, that's kind of who I think about. I think like constantly reinventing themselves and making new ideas and I think he actually almost doesn't get enough credit as he should for all the different things.
It is crazy.
Did. Yeah.
Right. And I think the reinvention, like with Jake as an example, his brother also, like WWE star now.
I guess he's in WWE.
Dude, yes. I watched like a highlight reel of maybe WrestleMania or something, whatever one of the events was. He's athletic.
Yeah. Well,
like the guy's doing backflips off of, the ropes and stuff.
He was a pretty good wrestler in high school. Jake wasn't a very good wrestler, but Logan was.
Got it.
Yeah.
Is that like a thing that the wrestling community talks about?
I don't know, a little bit, probably not like a huge amount.
Are they the most successful wrestlers of the last like 20 years?
That's a great question. We got Brock Lesnar. Obviously.
Jake supposed to made $50 million last year.
Allegedly. I never believe those numbers ever. Well, because I know I've seen mine, right? I've seen mine. I know what my net worth is, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen some that said, I saw one that said 20 million, and I thought, I wish. Right, and I saw one that said $500,000, and I thought, no way, like, that's not true at all, So it's like somewhere between those numbers. So I've seen you see those online, and you're like, oh, well, they're not true. I know they're not true of me, and I know I don't even know where they got their information. I think they just like made guesses by knowing a few of my purses or something.
So that's one. The other thing is the business list. I think they asked for verification, but it's like a little kind of crazy because they could ask you like, what's the value of the business? And if they don't know the full breakdown, they estimate, right? What I'll say is the numbers are probably closer than we would guess, based on some conversations I've had.
Yeah.
So let's just say that they are accurate.
He kind of scammed an NFT and crypto market too. So
however he did it,
he's been
does
a
that
part
make
of a
him?
whole,
Does that make him the most successful wrestler?
No, hell no.
Who made more money than him?
Well, I mean, if we denote that money is the only way to success, but yeah, I mean, so a few of those crypto and NFT projects he backed were kind of what is going on, like who let him do that type of thing, I mean, it almost makes me, how it makes me feel is like if he was really worth that much money, why would he be backing that? You know what I'm saying? It's not like a Bitcoin or or even a reputable company. Like some of the ones he backed were like, wait, like what is even going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would you say is the actual most successful wrestler? Like money, accomplishments. Like when you say like, hey, this is the representative of the wrestling community on like a global scale, like is there somebody who you think most of the community is like, yeah, this is what you can do with wrestling and after wrestling?
It's a great question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so obviously like you have like a Jim Jordan who is, really high up in the is he Congress or Senate? I'm blanking right now. I don't remember. Yeah, so that would be one I know people kind of think about a lot. And then there's a handful of other successful business people, but I don't think anyone really has that conversation about like I think people just think like in wrestling, like Cael Sanderson, like, he's coached 9 national championship teams now. People think like a lot about him. And probably like the guys who have done it well in MMA, like Henry Cejudo or Daniel Cormier, those type of people, right? There's been a lot of wrestling champions in mixed martial arts. But
who's the best MMA journalist?
Chuck Mindenhall, of course.
Who would you say for real?
Chuck Mindenhall.
Really?
He helped me write my book.
Yeah.
No, he's great. Obviously, Ariel does a great job. I think there's quite a few.
I think Ariel's been disrupted.
Why is that?
Have you not seen Andrew Schultz is out there saying he's the greatest MMA journalist of all time?
Andrew Schultz says that? Where did he say this? I didn't see this.
He like makes these videos every time there's a big UFC, and he like comments about whatever's going on. He said something, and people all start freaking out and saying like, "You're not an MMA journalist." So he's just the greatest one of all time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so now him and Helwani are in competition with each other.
Oh, nice. I like him, so I'll let him have it.
Well, Helwani is actually pretty interesting because he's been able to do this for a long time now.
He's been doing it for a long time, since the very beginning.
Right?
Really, really early years.
And he also, he was with one of the organizations.
Well, he's with ESPN now, and I believe now he's off kind of just independent a little bit.
I mean, talk about winning, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically was able to get himself in a position where he was the brand.
Someone can do it on their own terms is huge.
Yeah. It's kind of like Askren Wrestling Academy.
There we go. I'm trying to do as much as I can on my own. I mean, I always think about, from a monetary perspective, obviously there's people who are significantly wealthier than me. But one of the things I really love about my life is that I don't have a boss. Like, no one tells me what to do. I don't fear anyone's approval or whatever. And that's a really good position to be in. I think there's even a lot of, like, really successful people who are, like, worried about what their boss is going to say, or they know they can't do or can't do it. And I'm in a position where I'm like, if I want to do that, I'm going to do it. And if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And that's it.
The only life that I'm like, man, I think I'd really struggle to be happy. Like, there's a lot of shit I probably could do and be like, okay, and, like, find happiness in it. But the, like, 9 to 5, suit and tie, go sit in a cubicle. If that's your thing, more power to you. But, like, that's the one I think I'd have a tough time.
Yeah, the other one, I mean, now is, and obviously, you know, I'm here in Miami, so I'm traveling a little bit. But the other one is, like, when you start having a family, this is actually, I hadn't traveled for, like, 4 months without my family, which was pretty wild, because usually it's a little more than that. But someone who had to travel a ton with their family, like, I think that would be really hard, like. And I think that'd be somewhere you would, like, really question your life of, like, yeah, I'm making a lot of money, I'm having a ton of success, but I barely ever get to see my family.
Yeah.
Like, is that really what I
want?
Worth it? Is it worth it? Yeah. Exactly.
Where can we send people to get the book?
So it's available Barnes & Noble, Amazon.
Funky, My Defiant Path Through the Wild World of Combat Sports.
Yeah. The title's a tongue twister, so. I
That's
struggled
good.
with it. I know I messed it up twice when I was recording the audiobook. The audiobook was, I don't know if you've done an audiobook yet. Maybe you will at some point.
I just want to show everyone who's watching that was Ben. When I was going through the book, I saw this and I was like, bro, what? I never knew that's what you look like in college.
Yeah. No, that one was in high school. I have
high school.
Yep, I have a similar. My junior year of college, I think, was my other time where it was like at the Apex Afro. Yeah, so I did the audiobook. That was like, oh man, that was hard.
That was hard?
Like,
Why?
well, because you got to read. And so, okay, you and I are speaking on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
If I were to mess up a word, I would just keep going.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where if I got to read every single word and get it word for word,
yeah,
and I miss like an and or a the, or I got to start over.
The whole thing?
Well, the sentence or the paragraph or wherever, you know?
And then do you have someone there being like, you messed up, go back? Or you just know?
Most of the time, you knew. There was only a couple times where they said, like, hey, you missed that. You know? But then so being the hard part for me is I had to slow down significantly from when I talk, you know? So, like, if I'm talking like this, I would have to really, like, and this, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, so it was a challenge.
The only thing I ask people if you're going to do an audiobook not to do, I love learning from them, but Ray Dalio for Changing World Order, he reads the first like chapter or two, and then he rug pulls you.
I love it. He says I'm too busy. I love that shit.
I literally was listening, and he's like, "Hey, I'm too busy, so so-and-so's going to take over."
No, I love that.
What?
Yeah.
Like, either don't record any of it or record the whole thing. But you buy the audiobook, you start listening, and then he literally has like a chapter, and it's like, all right, this other guy's gonna read.
I loved it. I'm like, yeah, he probably is too busy.
Of course he's too busy, but I was like, dude, what?
No, did he do the first chapter? Or was it only the intro? Because I think you're right. Because I think I was thinking it would have made more sense if he would have just done like the intro.
Yeah.
And not the first chapter also.
But it felt like he was going to do the audiobook and then decided not to do it at some point.
Well, I don't blame him because I did one and it was freaking hard.
Yeah, and his book's very long.
It's very long. And he has a couple too, because I think once I listened to the first one, I think I listened to like a couple more, and I think he did something similar where he read if I remember, he did the first part and then not the rest. Yeah, no, I love that. That was a really good book too.
He's out here just tricking people.
Yes.
All right, where can we send people to find you on the internet?
I really just use Twitter. Obviously, I'm on Instagram, but I don't really love Instagram. I really love Twitter, so it's at Ben Askren.
All right, I appreciate it. We'll definitely do it again in the future.
All right, thanks, man.